Testing, 1, 2, 3. Streaming. Thank you. Cheers. Okay, members, agenda item one. Apologies. I have a few to go through first, and then if you could indicate if there's any from the other party. So we have Claire McConville Walker, Chris McCartan, and Councillor Jude Mallon. And just if I could, members, if you'll indulge me, I just want to pass a message on to the Mallon family. This is the first anniversary of Councillor Mallon's son, Kevin, who passed away. So you'll understand he can't be here tonight, and our thoughts and prayers are with him. So if there are any other indicators, Councillor or Alderman Moodry.
Thank you, Chair. Wish to be associated with the remarks that you've just made, but also an apology on behalf of Alderman Greenfield.
Thank you, Alderman Moodry. Okay, if there are no other indicators, then declarations of interest, agenda item 2. As per usual, members, we will take these as we progress unless somebody indicates now. And as there are none, we are now going to not go to agenda item 3. We are going to skip forward to the very last item, 5.12, which is the Loughnane Partnership. We're going to do a quick presentation, but yeah. But before we do that, members, we are going to have to go into confidential because that's where it sits. So if you'll just bear with me, we'll go into confidential, we'll have a presentation, and then we'll come back out. So members, sorry, proposer and seconders, can I have that first? Councillor O'Dowd and Councillor Ferguson. Members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into confidential session of the Council. This means we will be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask ICT officers, please turn off the feed and confirm with me when the confidential section to take proposer and seconder for decisions, because we didn't make a decision, sure.
No, we didn't.
Right,
No.
okay. Thank you. Cheers. Okay, members, we're back on to agenda item 3. One decision item, one information item, one kind of leads into the other. Members, in the pre-meeting, we kind of felt like it was such a wide-ranging item that I would move to the point of just asking, are there any questions relating to item 3.1, which is the business plan for 24-25. These do appear year to year, but members, rather than going through it, it cuts across a number of officers. So rather than going through it, are there any questions relating to it, or do we have a proposer and seconder to accept it? Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. It's just in relation to the business plans, and probably excuse my ignorance on this one about the embedding the net zero action plan. It's just probably more for my information on it would be is it in particular the associated costs that it will take for council in the long run to what we are aiming to achieve to reach net zero. So I have 2 questions, if you don't mind, if I could ask, is how much has been spent so far by council to achieve net zero? And what is the projected cost in the long run to finally achieve it? I know it may be a bit difficult of a question, but if that could be presented maybe in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Fair question, Councillor Armstrong. I'm just wondering, I would suspect we don't have that information tonight. Would you be happy enough?
Thank you for the questions. No, we don't have specifics on it. I suppose generally the cost so far for net zero, it would be very difficult to quantify that because it includes waste, it includes, you know, all the different things are happening. So that it might be difficult to tear that down because climate and net zero is such a big thing we're doing. In relation to projected costs, the action plan lays out different actions for individual departments and services. And the expectation is that they would go through the process to identify if there are any costs or if there's going to be cost savings, etc. So it's not that there is a particular budget for that yet, nor may there be. So at the minute, certainly we don't have a projected cost because we don't know, because the action plan has to be brought back to members. And what we may have spent before on net zero is that wide ranging. We don't have a category for that we could look at. For example, it includes waste as well as the green energy, etc., etc.
Yeah, thank you, Barry. I appreciate that. I just think it might be, I know it's going to be a lot of work to quantify it, but I think if we're just going to, you know, going forward in these business plans, what we're spending on net zero compared to what we're actually gaining out of it might be worthwhile for members to know in the long run, so we know if it's, you know, worth the cost of it. Especially when we're talking about trying to save money and trying to make efficiencies. If it's costing more than what it's actually bringing back in the council, I think it might be worthwhile, especially for this committee, to know what we are spending and what we are going to spend. I think it might be something to think about.
Okay, I'm just going to bring Jonathan in.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. So yeah, I think this is one of the priorities for council that's set out in the new corporate plan 24 through to 27. In relation to the business plan that resides within the Climate Sustainability and Parks Department, one of the objectives will to be bringing forward an action plan for members in this committee. The detail that Councillor Armstrong has asked for should be in that report where the action plan will come forward into committee, and it will be itemised out in relation to those actions that we propose to take to reduce carbon footprint, and then details such as costs and whatnot will come into that. And again, there is some work has started in the development of the action plan, but over Q1 into Q2, that action plan will come before this committee for further conversation, detailed discussion, and then hopefully approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jonathan. Councillor McClelland.
Yes, Chair, thank you for letting me in. And I guess it's a bit of a follow-on from the questions that my colleague, Councillor Armstrong, has asked. And Barry, as you have said, this whole sort of climate and net zero and so on, it's a huge issue and so on. And I suppose the question I would have would have been around the whole methodology of how we do this, and probably specifically of how we do the measuring, or rather how on a global context they do the measuring. Now, it's something that I know very, very little about, but the one thing I do know is that, shall we say, there's not a settled opinion around how the methodology is done. And I suppose I'm very happy to be getting sort of nodding heads from both Barry and from Jonathan that there is an awareness of this, because I think that this is huge. Because if we were to use a sort of erroneous or a not sound methodology around how all of this is measured, it would be a poor look, Chairman. So there's no real question in there, but as I said, that would be a huge concern for me. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McClelland. I think it's important your comments are noted, and it sounds, you know, Barry and Jonathan have actually touched on this. It's going to be a rolling kind of process, so we're probably going to see quite a bit of this coming forward. So hopefully that kind of information that Councillor Armstrong, for example, had asked for, we'll start to see some of that meat on the bones, so to speak. Alderman Moutray.
Thank you, Chair. My question relates to the Department of Climate Sustainability and Parks, certainly a grand title anyway, and a CSP 09. Can I just have an explanation, please, in relation to it? It says the performance of council-owned land maintained to agreed grass cutting standard and non-council grass, and the percentage of council maintained public toilets cleaned as per schedule. And the standard is 99% in the first case, 90 in the second, 99 in the third, and in all three cases the baseline is the same. Does that mean in the eyes of the council that we achieved the target in all three aspects? That's grass cutting of our own land, other land, and the cleanliness of the public toilets, and especially in context with the discussion was had a couple of months ago around the cleanliness of some public toilets. Thank you.
Yes, no, that is correct. So when we are cleansing the toilets or when we are cutting the grass, we are recording that as per the schedule. And we are adhering to that, and that's what that looks at. That does not look at the makeup of a toilet facility. So for example, we are going to get a condition survey done for Lurgan, the toilets in Lurgan Park. And we know that a number of our toilets are certainly quite old. And there was a report, members will recall, I think 3 years ago, that gave a sort of state of the toilets and the ramifications of fixing those. So certainly in relation to cleansing them and the grass cutting, yes, that's what we're saying is we have achieved those things. That's not, unfortunately, to say that 5 minutes after we clean them that they're not in a state. I was in Lurgan Park with the staff last week, and they said that within 5 minutes of them cleaning the toilet, there was vandals in who had done a lot more than just dirty the place. So we're constantly against that. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Alderman Moutray.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and I thank Barry for the response. And specifically in relation to Lurgan Park, it comes back to a point that I have made on many occasions before. Lurgan Park's not secured. During the daytime, there's vandalism taking place at the children's play park. It's at the toilets. There's antisocial behaviour going on in other parts of the park. And my concern is now around the late nights and with the prospect of better weather, what positive action is council going to do to take? I remember years ago, whenever we had a park ranger or a park warden, I don't know now who the folk are in the park or at what level it is, for lack of a better word, policed during the day in the summertime and the evenings. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Moutray. And you're happy for that to be noted and any information to be brought back? Okay, thank you. Okay, members, thank you. It is a decision item. And as I said at the beginning, it's so wide ranging. You know, there's so many officers involved in pulling this together, but members, we do have to agree on bringing it forward. So if we can have a proposer and seconder. Alderman Moutry and Councillor Evans. Okay, members, thank you. Item 3.2 is an information item on the year-end 23-24 progress report in the business plans. Are there any questions relating to that? Councillor Flaherty?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I suppose I found all of those quite a trawl to go through, I have to say. And interesting, yeah, yes, interesting. But I think there's a couple of the things I just did want to raise, I suppose, that stood out to me, and I'm glad that Alderman Moutry mentioned the toilets, because it's saying there that the standards are being kept. Because they're, and from what you've just said there, Ms. Patience, is they're being kept because the staff are cleaning them when on the schedule. I don't necessarily think that that's just working for those of us in and around these places and for the constituents. That I don't know how we're going to fix that one, because it was raised by my colleague no less than a week ago at full council about them. I mentioned that some of the state we'll have to get back to that issue of the toilets, but I suppose what the things that stood out for me is the first one, the first business plan updates that are great. Everything seems to be on track there. There wasn't anything that stood out majorly to me in that one. When it comes to environmental services, and I know the issues, we've all discussed it, and we sit and talk about it every month in different forums. The Oxford Island issue there, we really do. I'm going to highlight that one because we really do need to progress something out there. We've just heard a few issues there that need, maybe I know that was in confidential business, but we need to be utilising the facility that we have, and it's really not at the minute. It's been, and I know there's a staff issue, which leads me to the second thing I have to say, which is our staff. The two things that really are standing out to me is customer service and satisfaction, and the staff issues, which are not hitting the standards that they should be, whether it's absence or whatever. I've always said, and you've heard me at this before, that our front-facing staff are what makes this council what it is. And we cannot expect a good maintenance of our services and our standards if our staff aren't feeling it and aren't being supported in whatever way, because there seems to be a higher number of fallen standards in that regard. And we've said this before over the years. So I'm going to ask again, just what is the plan there? I know there's a resource issue. I know there's a recruitment. I've been there before with you about this and about recruiting our staff and trying to get good staff and keep good staff and value our good staff that are out there at every resident's door every day of the week. That's on some residents, that's all they see. So what processes and resources have we in place to finally tackle this and make sure our staff are valued?
Thanks, Councillor Flaherty. I'm going to hand over to Borough.
Yeah, well, a couple of sort of points there. Staff are very valued and staff work very hard, and that's across, and I'll speak for ourselves in ES and in the new department. Oxford Island, if it's to do with the building itself, we don't, as in ourselves, we don't run the building. We have the staff in the building, and we do the nature conservation and the biodiversity from there. So it's to do with specifically the building in Oxford Island and the cafeteria, etc. That's not for me at this point in time. In relation to the absence that we have, we are continually working towards improving absenteeism and sicknesses with us, and it tends to be longer term sickness within those operational services, probably for obvious reasons. But again, we work with staff as best we can on all those different fields because they are valued. And I agree with you. You know, if we don't have staff in a council, we aren't delivering a service at all. But it does have an impact then on what we can do. But we are continually working towards improving that. And there's been a number of progressions. It's far from over. But if it's to do with the physical Oxford Island building, that wouldn't be for me. Sorry.
Okay. And just being told, Councillor Flaherty, there is probably some follow-up information we can gather through Mark Halliday, and we can follow up with you if you're happy with that. Members, it wasn't a decision item. Are we happy to note this? Yep. Okay. Thank you, members. Agenda item 4. There's a few decision items on this. I'm going to hand over to Barry.
Thank you, Chair. Members, as you know, we've had a number of reports about the allotments and different ways of encouraging people to grow food and understand the importance of growing food and eating healthily. Members at the last committee, I think it was 9 or 10 months ago, had asked that we would come back with some specific information about costs that there would be associated with establishing allotments and running allotments. So as you can see from this, we have used our own figures and information. We have also went to APSI, and we've also talked to other colleagues in other councils who have. The allotments information is there before you. Obviously, there is no budget for this, either for the establishment or for the running. The other thing that would draw members' attention to is the information about the other programmes that council are working on across the borough in relation to encouraging people to grow their own food, to reduce their carbon footprints, etc., which is a substantial piece of work, and as I say, across the borough. There is also the project down at Bushcraft in Oxford Island. That's a great project. I know a number of you were at the launch of that a number of weeks ago. And that for ourselves is being used as a hub to drive out this information, to drive out the education, to drive out the learning to other parts of the borough. And that will be happening over the coming years. And I would be keen at some point maybe to have a workshop with members down there to physically go through that with them. The report before you this evening is basically saying that we go back in 12 months, we look at this again when, as I say, the team down in Oxford Island will be looking at other funding sources to see about a different model for perhaps delivering the same sorts of things that traditionally an allotment would have delivered. So happy to take any thoughts or comments as always. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Barry. Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm glad to see this is still on the agenda. I think it has been for a number of years, but I do thank the officers for presenting that information. It is really useful. And I think after speaking with officers earlier, Barry, yourself, I'm a bit more reassured that we'll be going down sort of the community growth or community growing schemes as a potential, because I don't think we can ignore the demand of our allotment survey that we did, I think, earlier last year. And obviously this work, I'm sure we'll look at different funding and grant streams because those costs are very high and our budgets aren't going to sustain that for long if we were to go down that route. So hopefully in 12 months' time we'll have something, maybe a hybrid approach that will combine food and health and well-being and climate as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor McClelland.
Yes, Chair, thank you for bringing me in, and thank you to Barry and the officers for bringing what's a very good, very detailed and very excellent report. And I think fundamentally this whole thing is a good news story, and I would certainly encourage it. The one perhaps note of caution that I would bring would be, right, at the moment, and they were referenced in the report, we have a couple of organisations or families that have went out on their own in terms of setting up what are very successful businesses. And I think that we always need to be careful that we are not putting those private sector operations, shall we say, who are very successful. And I mean, it's referenced in the report that they are both full, they are both expanding and so on. So I think that we always have to be careful that we are not potentially putting the private sector at a disadvantage, because I think there's room for everybody in this. So that is the note of caution that I would sound, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McClelland, and your comments have been noted. Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Just sort of coming in the same lines as Councillor McClelland there, but I think with the locations of these three, if it does come to pass, even though it is financial at the minute, that that's delaying it, but the only thing is, I think with the locations of these, it'll be more, it'll not be rural based, this will be more central for people in towns, whereas the private ones is more out of it a wee bit, but just coming in on that, I think the 12 months is maybe a wee bit long, because if you're in the allotment sector, you want to try to get planting early spring. So if you're going to 12 months, you're going to miss next year as well. You know, by the time the wheels would, if there was something come to pass with funding and so on and so forth, but I think that the 12 months is maybe a wee bit long. Just you're going to miss this year and next year at that, but that's only my opinion.
Thank you, Alderman Kennedy. And I think I speak for us townies and saying we haven't a clue what you're saying there. So the country folk know exactly what you just said. The rest of us didn't. Do you want to come back in, Brian? Yeah.
I think long and short that the 12 months is a sort of a maximum. We would come back to yourselves. If in 4 months we were getting funding, or if it was going in a different direction, then we would bring it straight back to members. We wouldn't be waiting for, if there was good news, I'm not going to hold back and coming back to you. So that's the long and short of it. What I'm saying is it'll be 12 months and we'll come back and give you an update no matter what. If there's something positive that we need your agreement for, then we come back to you as and when needed, if that's helpful.
Happy enough.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Barry, Councillor McElrath.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Barry, for the report. Listen, as I said before, previously, these allotment sites are fantastic out in our communities, right across our community. And as I look at the wee list, it would be remiss of me not to mention that there's an excellent scheme in Killicamane as well, Killicamane Residence Group, funded by the Housing Executive. I think it's the National Garden Scheme, an excellent scheme in there. And just want to see the list, never to miss a point. Just to make sure that there's a wee bit of recognition for that group and the fantastic work that they do in there as well. But on a general point, these allotment schemes are fantastic for the community. So thank you for bringing the report, and hopefully maybe in the days ahead we can look at further advancement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McElrath. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, yes, I think my preference would be to empower the community with these as well, and certainly agree with all the comments that was said. Just a minor comment, if it did go ahead in the site that was suggested, Barry, to check for a flood risk within that site in Guildford, because I'm fairly sure that field flooded the last time the rain was here. So just putting that on your radar, Barry, in case it did go forward. Thank you.
It's a sort of local knowledge, keep us straight as we progress with the allotments. Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. We do actually need a proposer and a seconder for that. So members, I do need Councillor Johnson and Councillor McClelland. Happy enough? Okay, members, thank you. Item 4.2, Barry, we're back to yourself for a charity concert in Lurgan Park.
Yes, Chair, and you've basically just done the report. So it's a charity concert in Lurgan Park. If members are content to agree, with the usual credentials about insurance, etc. And the information there before members. The park stays open to 10 o'clock at that point in July anyway. So we're not having extended opening hours. And the team on the ground are content with this, as members are. Happy to take any thoughts or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Members, in your hands, we just basically need a proposer and a seconder. Alderman Moutry.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, can I just ask, maybe I missed it in the papers, but what's the name of the group organising this?
Its music will be rock and blues, and local singer Niamh Murray will be doing the mix of her own music. That's as much as I'm aware of the type of music it is, members.
Thank you, Chair. Not just really my type of music, but happy to propose it anyway.
You should probably follow up with telling us what your type of music is, Alderman Moody, but we'll save that for another meeting, Mama. Councillor O'Dowd.
Thanks, Chair. I could leave the blues, but I'll take the rock. But I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor O'Dowd. And I know Niamh Murray, and she's a local artist, and if you were to attend that event, I'm sure you'd be very impressed. She's an excellent performer. Okay, members, if you're happy, then we'll move on. The next 4 items are information items, and with the hefty schedule we have in front of us here, members, unless anybody has any questions relating to this, Councillor McClelland.
Yes, Chair, and at the risk of absolutely begging your indulgence, at item 4.4, Compost Awareness Week, just to essentially sort of give a very warm welcome to this particular initiative. It really is the demonstration of the circular economy working, and it cannot, in my view, get enough publicity. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McClelland, and I totally agree with your comments and remarks. I'm sure most of us, if not all of us in here, would say the same. Okay, members, if we don't have any other questions relating to these information items, we shall move on. We're going to go back into confidential business, so bear with me. Can I have a proposer and seconder to go into committee? Councillor Armstrong, Councillor O'Dowd. Members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into a confidential session of the Council. This means we will be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask the ICT officers to please turn off the feed and confirm with me when the confidential section of the meeting can proceed? Thank you. Okay, members, proposer and seconder to agree the recommendations made in committee. Councillor Armstrong. One more, Alderman Kennedy. Okay, members, agenda item 6, correspondence. There are no items. And agenda item 7 is AOB. I am not aware of anybody and nobody's indicating. So on that, I just want to say thank you for your attendance tonight, and also thank you for your input and attendance throughout the year. I have thoroughly enjoyed my year as chair, and I wish the best to whoever comes after. And thank you to all the staff for making it that bit easier. Okay, thank you, members. Safe home.